This is Listening with Franklin Livingston, and our guest is Emily Benazzi.
Yeah, it was more fear-based. It was like I was just a little, like you perfectly explained it, just like, just kind of like the lurking of not being really to escape the eye of Jesus. I'm like, you can't.
This is a monster who's awake.
I felt like that. It felt like that. It doesn't feel like that now, and I haven't really like recognized that for a while. But yeah, like when I was a kid growing up, I had a really bad nightmare, and I have to say maybe it was fed by all of the horror movies that came out. The 90s were big on horror movies. I mean, I don't know if you remember too many of them.
I only have seen The Exorcist.
Okay, so that's like one that's kind of terrifying. And then there was like all the Chucky movies, the Pet Cemeteries, the Mike Myers, Halloween, and like Jason and all that stuff. It was pretty crazy. But like I watched all that stuff when I was like 5, 6 years old. So maybe this was beating it.
Your mom didn't stop you?
It was part of this. It was part of the society. Like I had 2 older brothers. So, they, by the time I was 5, there was an 11-year-old in the house. So that's like almost a teenager in the 90s. You know what I mean? So it was a very big spectrum, and like it was fake. It was fake. So it didn't matter, but I still watched it, and it was scary. So I had this one nightmare, and it really traumatized me. It was Jesus Christ in the basement of my house where the daycare center was, remember? He was the statue of Abraham Lincoln, like the monument, but it was Jesus Christ. He was sorting out my good toys and my bad toys. And he was putting all my good toys over here, my bad toys over here. But I just like felt like Jesus was this big marble statue sitting in my basement, like always watching and like sorting things out. And then he took this one doll, and it was this doll that I really loved. And it was like this doll that talked. And it was the first time a doll really talked, like, feed me spaghetti, And he like put that in the bed pile. And like it just freaked me out. I don't know why it freaked me out. I thought that he was in my basement. I couldn't go in my basement for like maybe 2 years. It was bad. I know. And I still dream about it sometimes. Still see it, but it doesn't scare me anymore. But like it was just such a weird dream that I really remember. And they were forcing me to like go in the basement and like try, and my family like woke me up as I was freaking out. They're like, come to the basement. Nothing's in here. Like it's fine. And then like it just, yeah. I don't know, I'm just kind of, ever since then, I never really had like the trust in it. It was weird.
Trust?
In just knowing that, embracing. I just want to say that it's kind of been a mix, and maybe I'm just giving you like this one angle of it, but it was very mixed. I mean, I had very good influences in my life about, like you asked me how my mom raised me, like, what did she raise me on? And it was really like the golden rules and just like how to treat people right. And she was very into that, and she even gave me the book like last year of the 10, or I think it's the 10 golden rules or something like that.
Did she ever say that Jesus will punish you if you do something like this? Oh God.
Yeah, she would make me like say, "Dear God, forgive me 10,000 times, 10 times." She'd saying, "Dear God, forgive me 10 times right now," like right now. And like, she would be very like serious about that. And like, it was, you just didn't want to disappoint. It's just like, I feel like it's so disappointing. You're never going to get into heaven if you do something wrong. So like the confessions were really big. And I remember doing confessions when I was young, like little kid, and like trying to think about what I'm going to tell this priest. What did I confess? Like, I would never actually tell them that, like, and I didn't realize that confession was just really like a confession of maybe thoughts that you had, or just like, how to process something. So I didn't use it wisely. I thought it was like I have to tell them like the bad things that I did so then they can help me figure it out. I didn't have like a proper introduction, I feel. It was just like very heavy at first.
I think so. You asked me during the break. So
yeah, I'm curious about your experience.
We 3 siblings. Our upbringing was very different in that way. When it said it was closer to Catholicism, we grew up more in the Anglican tradition, the British version, the Czech version. And I think our strict household was just strict about general discipline. The general means, for example, how to sit at a table. Or if you're going to go to church, then you should be properly dressed up, which meant more like a westernized dressed up. And you should not hang out with people. And that was when I grew up a little older. You shouldn't hang out with people who might lead you to smoking. I don't think beyond that we had anything like this fear of Jesus, because our mother she was very close to Catholicism because she spent a significant amount of time in two different convents, the Order of Catholic Church, as an educationist. And she would read the Bible. And I think she said when she was really young before her marriage, she did read the Rosary too. But we never had that where you got to say a thing, Hail Mary 25 times. We never said Hail Mary. And in that case, I think we were blessed enough not to have that fear.
Yeah.
But then we were stopped in a way that it was just, we knew, we were not taught or instructed that way, but we knew that you don't watch, say, horror films or horror TV shows. Because the other issue is, in the East, in a lot of countries, believe the presence of spiritual world. Now, I think a lot of people have started believing in the US too, a bit differently, where they use this language, dark energy and pure energy, positive energy. But it was more vivid. It is more vivid. And all the religions would talk about these demons hovering around, or you got to be careful. If you do certain things, then you might get in touch with them indirectly. So you grew up, because we had cousins who were older than us, so you listen to those things. So it's kind of like in your system by default that what you mentioned right away when you were sharing that, a doll. So I was thinking of a movie. Without mentioning its name, that these images, why do we say still, I think the power of positivity, you should have good thoughts. When a woman is pregnant, she should have good thoughts, or be closer to the nature and all that stuff, and don't think of dark things. But a lot of faith-based people in the US love dark movies. When I say dark, we monster-based, or
no, it's not monster-based. It's like the horror, like the gory stuff.
That's why now it also makes sense when you go through certain experiences. Some people would say, don't talk to me, God being the father, because I have a bad example or image of a father. And it becomes very difficult for them to, let's say, read the scriptures or sing the hymns that claim God to be the father, because they have a vivid image they have embedded in them who the father is. And detaching that, okay, this father is different than that father. It's difficult, right? So I think that's what happened to you, Wizard Sand. I'm sorry to hear about that.
Oh, I didn't realize it was sad until honestly we were talking about it. Like, I did get really emotional, and I didn't realize that it was as sad. It sounded horrible what I was saying, and like, damn. But I have to say that I want to just give credit where credit's due. I mean, like, it wasn't, they did the best that they could, right? They didn't know any better. Mm-hmm. My mom, she got baptized, I think, like 45, like.
In the Catholic Church?
Yeah, at the church that I got baptized at.
And how was baptism done? So, like with a kid, they would do a sprinkling thing, or like a little bit. What we see in the movie Godfather.
They think that they just dip their finger in the holy water and then they just make the cross on their head.
He wasn't fully
able to
immersion.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Maybe I don't know.
Oh, right. You're thinking of more of like a Baptist.
Yeah, apart from Baptists, a lot of traditions do that.
I wish that's how it was done for me. That would have been awesome.
Okay. Yeah, we can raise it. Okay. Somebody who will reach out to you. Gotta be Castor. Oh, I know a guy.
But my daughter's not baptized.
Okay. Waiting on her or what?
No, I'm just Well, I guess because, like I said, I didn't have the choice, and I want her to have that, her own relationship that she finds. without the influence too much of me, but giving her enough where she can choose and like figure it out and like be open and talk about everything that she wants to talk about and introduce her to other churches, like go to church camp and like see stuff. So, and now her relationship is so awesome.
Great.
I'm so happy.
Talk to me about.
Like she goes, God wanted me to do that. Like that's so cool.
Great. That's very. Yeah.
It's like, God heard me. Like I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We come to her later.
That just makes me so happy.
Learn that stuff. But let's go back to your childhood again. So you developed this fear of Jesus Christ. Again, how you mentioned you were frightened was the term you used.
I just didn't trust him. I didn't trust any of it.
But what else? How did it change you? Teen, adolescent stage of life. Were you more of a rebel or you were more scared?
No. I was fearless. Like at that point, Yeah, because that's what happens, right? When you lose touch of really what is true and what is good and what is positive, and you allow all of those negative energies around you kind of penetrate, your field of energy, you can go either way. You can go like, I'm never going to do anything and I'm going to sit in a box and I'm going to be afraid of the world, or you're going to totally go off the other spectrum. And my personality let me go off the other spectrum, which is fine because I was like a manageable risk at times, but like there were some pretty messed up things that I shouldn't have done. And I know now I got out of them because of Jesus. And like I was saved like so many times. And that's like the only explanation that I could have on it, because none of it made sense. Like, why did I get out of this? Why? And how come like now, So I had a big awakening when I was like 25. But that's not my teenage years. My teenage years, fearless, just like I was into skateboarding. I was a surfer. I was like, I wasn't into drugs. I was not. I thought that was another thing that I think maybe religion had done, is like smokers, no. Like, right? I can resonate with you on that. Smokers was a no. Like anybody who smoked was terrible. They're horrible. Although my grandparents smoked. Well, you didn't think old people who smoked were bad. But anyway.
They didn't know better.
It was cool then. Who knows? They look so good doing it, so they smoke and play guitar.
That's a lot of my movie. A lot of smoking.
I don't smoke cigarettes, no.
Though I get those...
the fake thing?
Yeah, the herbal type it says, but it tastes nasty. I think it's some sort of what's that Italian thing we put on pizza? Oregano?
Oh, oregano.
It tastes bad. But, yeah.
Yeah, so, growing up as a kid, you were a little afraid of Jesus there, and then like all of a sudden you're like, hasn't really made a difference if I did a bad thing or not. So what else can I do? I remember like I was so bad. I was like a bad little kid. Like no, I was a bad teenager.
Yes.
But not where like I was hurting others. It wasn't I was hurting anybody.
Or mischievous.
Yes, I was like goofy and very mischievous and looking for just fun.
Looking for validation or not?
No, looking for fun and like looking for just like people who had a good sense of humor. Like I was silly, like very silly, goofy, very, very goofy. But then over-sexualized very young, like in public schools, horrible middle school. I would never wish anybody to go to middle school. Like, ugh.
In the U.S. or in a public school?
Where I went. In the U.S., probably. I got code from put him in private school or do home right out.
There's a lady who's from Texas. I met her when she was 23, 24. She lives in the city. She wrote something for me, which was... at that time, I thought it was too sexualized because that was before the series you watched. And I said, wow, how do you know this stuff? And it was an innocent question from my side, from what she thought. And she said, I grew up in the U.S. too, did not. I went to school here, you did not. And
well, school is valued outside of the U.S. more, I feel, in other countries.
The only thing I would say, I have a friend, I have asked him to come here and talk. He has been a retired school counselor. He said his experience was people abroad, different countries, learn things early on. He was specifically talking about chemistry and these kind of stuff. And here in the US, they learn that in the later years. So they that's why are ahead of. But then there's a difference between a confidence or, I don't know how to.
Yeah, just personality essence.
But I think now what I've seen is the whole world is more sexualized. You gotta have a content unless there's some sexualized stuff. People, it's not something that doesn't align with them. But when we were growing up, still I think when we talk about millennials, a bit older, right away, you don't think a woman, coming from a male perspective, I'm not talking about me, generally, people don't right away look at a female with the lust type or whatever. But I think our movies, our shows, that's what you show, because two people commonly coming from two different genders or sex, they gotta hook up at the movie. They have to have a kiss. They have to have a sex scene, right? Which is, I don't know which has made the culture that way. That's why it's very difficult to develop a friendship with an opposite sex unless you know them since ages. Otherwise, I think it's not something you do. Whereas in the so-called third world countries, it is very common, I think, still. Talking to female right away. And then there's a fear, I think. There's a fear, why is he talking to me? Why is she talking to me? Because you are thinking in the back of the head, what the movie shows you, okay, this is going to lead to a kiss and sex, right? And your mind is already tuned that way, the way your mind was probably as a child. Oh, Jesus is a spirit, and maybe I don't see him, but he's some sort of a character that I am trying to understand internally from a movie perspective. And then you saw this nightmare. So I feel sad.
Like the Catholic kind of like symbol of Jesus, him at his worst, and it's on broad display, and that's scary too, to be sitting at and looking at when you're a kid too, just looking and trying to figure that out. So. And then also not understanding that, really you're not drinking his blood. And, that you're not eating his body.
Easy to, yeah.
Yeah, I really thought that I was doing those things, for a while. And I thought that his crown, or, the crown that he was wearing, was in, this box, the curtain box. So it's, all the mysteries of the things that are up on the altar and, just never really fully understanding what they're actually talking about. I didn't really get to fully read the Bible before in detail, so I'd like to do that. I thought about that a lot. I want to get one and start reading it.
I think, as I can never paid attention to those things. And I think I was more interested, so was my sibling, to be quick, because we used to use the same cup. They give you the wafer at the cup at the communion. So it's the same cup everybody sips from. Right. So I think our goal was to get there before everyone else. So it's not contaminated. Instead of paying attention to the blood, it never crossed my mind, to be honest. It's a blood. They used to say the blood of Christ shed for you.
I just did it. Maybe I just introduced smart, or I was just very gullible. Yeah. Super gullible.
Yeah. No, I think I heard one of my professors once said that she gave an example of a kid who said, so we have to eat the body of Christ because, what are you taking it literal? Yeah. It's gross.
Yeah. It just also makes you okay, this is a little strange, but what, so.
We use a lot more, you talk about symbolism.
I think so. I wanted to say I find it really refreshing that we could actually talk about stuff like this, because people don't.
Because there's a fear. When you talk about religion, people look down. A lot of people I know, they'll say, oh my God.
But it's weird. Why?
Because it's considered
it affects a lot of our life. But what is cool?
look, what do majority of us watch? Somebody comes on a camera and does a gesture of spitting or something, and next thing you know, they might have millions of followers, right?
Well, I think that people are also getting really bored of like social media, so everything is cool. So it's just like now nothing's cool, which I love.
Nothing is cool. Explain more to me. Did you see? I was trying.
Like, oh, everything is so cool
today.
You look cool, but like, it's just like everything is cool, so like nothing's cool.
Yeah, because it's like, when you have. It's a little bit of a different example, but one of our acting teachers used to say, most of the females in acting schools used to be white females, and mostly female, and then there were 3 or 4 guys.
Okay.
And she used to say that you all are white. Now you have to develop your individual identity. Otherwise, why would somebody cast you? You all look almost the same, right? You can, say this group is a blonde, this group is a brunette, but still. And I think the percentage was 90 and 10%. And so that's why it doesn't remain cool. I get it. Yeah. But go back to your teenagers. Yeah, well, you did a lot of crazy stuff.
No, we were just talking about how like, just like, being in like middle school and stuff, it's just like you lose a lot of confidence in yourself. And if you don't really like have...
You lose a lot of confidence?
Yeah.
Why?
I feel like there's like a big study. I feel like there's a huge study that happened recently and that just like exposed how much confidence a kid loses as soon as they enter middle school. And like that age is such a fine line because like you're not a kid yet. You're not a teenager yet. You're really just trying to get like your footing on the ground with stuff. And you could easily be pushed into certain situations that you shouldn't be in. And that's all peer induced. And I also do feel like the school system kind of designs it that way. They also make it really impossible for a kid to understand that, well, I'm always in the same room as people that are the same age as me, like we're always in the same room as people that are the same age as me. But then like you're growing up and you're like, now you're in 6th grade, you're starting to realize, oh, there's a couple of, I'm not the oldest kid anymore. Like there's the older kids here and like, what are they doing? And that's where like the mix of just like the 6th graders witnessing what the 8th graders could be doing. It just is like such a gradual step in like how you're going to actually play out your teenage years now. Because like you could get involved with some really bad stuff at a very young age and you could let it, like it could go by because people don't expect you to be doing those things because you're so young. But it hits you at a young age now, especially in the urban areas of Long Island, where there is money too. So I've seen a lot of substance abuse, unfortunately. But I was a person that was raised in a household where it was a little hypocritical because we, obviously had the fear beasts of the religion are always there. And like we had a very strict household when it came to like making sure that the daycare was all good. But there were weekends and, things happened and people got involved with stuff in the household too that really shouldn't have been doing. And then it kind of leaks into the kids, it leaks into my brothers. And then, predominantly just the culture at that time of like the 2000s of like techno music and that whole stuff came out, raves and like it was new for people. We didn't have that kind of music this whole time. We just had pretty much alternative rock or like country was still a thing. But like, in the 2000s when we started to get that music, it's in the 90s or the late 90s and the early 2000s, that music hyped people up, and especially on Long Island, there was such a culture for all of that. So that leaks into like you as a kid. It's just like, oh, people want to live this fast lifestyle. Like people like this loud music. People like smoking cigarettes. They like drinking. People like doing whatever substances they have here. I was scared of that stuff because I saw firsthand what most of it was doing to the people around me. And I never got involved with it. Like, I drank for sure, but I never did any of the other stuff. And I pride myself on that. Like, I never smoked a cigarette. Really? Like, come on, Emily, you're lying. No, I actually didn't. And it was good. I'm happy I didn't. But, I've done some other things growing up in like my late 20s, but that's a different story. I'm just happy that I was able to make it out because so many of the people on Long Island did not. And it was like that fine line of where you went after middle school, really, I felt. And then also like where you fit in when you went to high school. It was rough because, like we were talking about earlier, Long Island is very diverse. So the people that are in the public school are very diverse too. You can have really poor people. You can have pretty wealthy people. And you can have just like the standard me, like just fucking right in the middle. And not really fitting in really early on either side. And I also grew up in a very Jewish community. So being, East Meadow was big where there was kind of like, I think there's 4 elementary schools in that town. So that's a big town. 4 elementary schools. And then all those elementary schools get put into one middle school. And then they continue to high school together. That's a lot of different households combining there. And it was also very split up in different neighborhoods. Like I said, I grew up on the borderline of Uniondale and East Meadow, but that particular section was like the wealthy area of the area. It was like, I don't even want to say the phrase because it's stupid, but, it was a very Jewish community. But, so picture being pretty Catholic, like Christmas time comes around, you guys are celebrating Christmas. On this side of town, everybody's celebrating Hanukkah. But over on that side of town, everybody's celebrating Christmas. So it's like, I never really fit in with like my community around me. So when I met the middle school kids, I was like, whoa, there was only a couple of people that were celebrating Christmas in my town, literally, that I knew that were kids, besides the daycare kids that came. So it was crazy. Like I met all these new people and like I loved these friends that I made, and I was getting involved with things that like I probably would have never even gotten involved with if I stuck around with the same kids that I was hanging out in my original school there, you know what I mean? So it was pretty fun, I have to say. And like my relationships with the kids growing up was moderate. Like I was bullied for sure, but I never bullied people. Oh my God, it was not that way. I like welcomed everybody. So I was different. Like people preyed on that. Like I welcomed everybody. I did not care who you were at all because of my daycare center upbringing. Like I knew every kid and like I've seen every child. So it's like I didn't have any judgment. So that helped me as a person. Like I was always helping the people that were the underdogs. And, I looked the way that I looked, and people took advantage of that. Pretty much. Like that was terrible, awful, just so awful. Like I don't even want to even get into like how brutal people can be just because of the way that you look. And even if you look good, it comes to you too. It doesn't matter. So that was rough. But then you kind of like, I was always friends with people a little bit older than me. I wasn't really too much friends with like the people in my class. I was more so friends with the people older. I don't know why, actually. I never really understood why. But then, like, they graduate out. So then you don't have any other friends. So I remember being in 12th grade, all of my friends were gone. And like,
this was high school?
Yeah, 12th grade high school. And like, I didn't have any friends. So I like literally joined I made like a completely new friend group. Like people that were hanging out for years. Then I just started hanging out with them, and they really weren't into the same things that I were into. They were completely different than the kids that I were hanging out with who were very like Long Island, if you know what I mean, like very materialistic type of stuff, like high end type of things, just like trying to be somebody so hard. And then like 12th grade comes and I'm just like, I don't even know who I am anymore. Like, what am I doing? And I just like...
Say more about that.
Like, I just didn't know... Like, I really wish I could remember this because it was just like... damn. Yeah, I just feel like that was just like a lost period of time. Like, you're like letting go so much of, I really don't know. I don't know. But like, I switched it up entirely and I started hanging out with people that I never hung out with before. And that was fun. We had a good relationship. We had really good times. But like, I started doing, more things that I didn't really do. Like,
Good things or more?
no, not necessarily good things. Not necessarily bad things either. Just the normal kind of want to go party, like get drunk, stupid stuff. That's really what I regret. I regret like the culture, that American culture of like drinking is fun. It bothers me. It's like drinking is not fun. Drinking is sad to me, honestly. And like the way that we've always like used alcohol in occasion, like the best occasions of our lives. I'm like, here's a bunch of alcohol. It's like, doesn't make sense to me. So I regret that. I regret like falling victim to alcohol culture in my 17 to like 25-ish, That was a big waste of time right there because all that stuff you could be doing,
So during those years, were you in an internal conflict with what you were doing, or later on when you see,
No,
and
not at all. Look back.
then you see it was unwise?
Oh yeah. I had no clue. No clue.
You were having fun? Were you at peace?
No, not at peace, but having fun.
And that's very important because, see, when people say to me, I'm happy, and I know if I ask this question to them, not here in general, then they would try to change the topic or not talk to me. That, okay, you're happy, but do you have eternal peace, internal joy? Because those are two different things.
Yeah.
Right? I rarely drink. I can drink.
Right.
I can get drunk.
Of course.
Right? Because I can afford. That's the thing. I can do a lot of things. I can have a yacht party. But I know the next day or after a week, I will not feel good about that.
Oh, yeah.
I was talking to somebody actually here. Some people, they remain so busy in this party mode, or they think I have friends and we're having fun. We live in and the coolest part of, say, Brooklyn. And when there's a break, they get depressed. And that's the time one should self-evaluate. That's the time to conduct an introspection. And I think my struggle is, and because the faith-based community or an individual should always be at peace, should always, why there's a verse, the Apostle Paul says that always be happy, right? But why can't we be happy? When we don't have anything to do, that's the time to see, are we happy, which I think content, at peace? Yeah. Or is it like, oh my God, because that's a distraction. Distractions could be positive too. I have a 9 to 5, I go do that. But break is very important. Starting from the book of Genesis, there's a break. In the creation story, 7th day, God rested. But a lot of us can't rest. Why? Because when people go on a vacation, then this is me. This is my perspective. You go to vacation, you're going to go with a partner, and then you're drinking, you're surfing, and you're still doing something. Or reading, right? You are not shutting down your system, right? And like you mentioned, you don't like that. I don't like, for example, this language when a lot of people say, I date a lot, or I'm a something
Really?
serial dater and all. Because to me, that tells you can't be by yourself. And a person who can't be by themselves lacks something. To me, that's the greater joy, that's the peace, that's the internal happiness. And without that, you're just like wasting your time.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And I really wish that we, as a country, can learn more from the upbringing that your culture has instilled with that. Because I do believe that that comes from the foundation in which you were raised on. Being able to have that, being able to tap into that consciousness of knowing that you are enough for yourself. That's not something that I kind of found out about that recently. You know what I mean?
Right. Maybe, I mean, I don't know if everybody's like that in that country or that part of the world, but definitely there are differences in how you grew up at a household.
No, I don't mean that in any like offense either, though. I think that that's actually the most beautiful part about different cultures is like the foundations in which their people are, you know? And I don't know, I do feel like, I just know a bunch of American guys. Nope, they're not okay. They don't find peace within themselves, you know?
Right, but also I remember I was in a training and we had a classmate or course mate. He was, I think he was in the late 50s, and he said he was a general contractor for maybe 25 years. And if I understood correctly, he was feeling something, went to a doctor referred him to a psychiatrist gave him some pills that he was on those pills for 25 years, and he said he did not feel anything. That's a quick fix. You can numb your feelings, and a lot of people just become stoic or would numb themselves by living in a fast-paced culture.
Yeah.
And they wake up at 4 and they go to 5 and everything struggles. And somebody asked me here about relationships. I said, I don't like the kind of relationships I've seen. I've seen some people, they'll come home, they'll kiss their spouse, and it comes across, now as an actor, because I also direct, I can see it's fake using the language because it's not coming from in. And then the person would say, how was your day? Oh yeah, I went to my doctor, and the doctor said you have to go through some heart thing and all that. I'm not like that way at all. I'm sorry about that. I gotta go to bed. I gotta go to bed because I have to wake up at 4 tomorrow. And that's it. And then there are relationships which are more intimacy based. You live separate, Upper West Side. He lives in, I forgot where it was, say, a financial district. Get together for a weekend. But in general, when you see, it's such an, to my eyes, awkward or formal or weird relationship because it's just based on an activity. Whereas I still believe that two are better than one. But you gotta be sharing each other's burdens, emotional burden, or build each other up. Because of you, they should have some peace or some learning or something. Right. But if that's not, it's just, then what's the point?
I think that most people operate as a half, not as a one. So in order for your equation to work, the person does have to be whole, you know? And the other person has to be whole too.
Explain this half thing.
I just thought about this now, but like, I literally feel like people operate, you know, at different levels. And like, especially when you're in a relationship, I mean, you have to be a whole person to be able to be in a committed relationship, I firmly believe. Like, you're not going to be a half person. You're not going to be like...
Whole means fully available?
Like...
Or whole means fully yield or...
I would say a person who can find the inner peace within themselves and then chooses to be with somebody because they're not with them for the company, because they have the company within themselves, or they understand that they can be alone within themselves. They're choosing this person because they make them better, or they all the other reasons why people will be in relationships with people. I do think that there are a lot of people that operate as half people that are living up to their full person, that haven't committed to themselves fully enough to make themselves full. I mean, I'm an example of them. And I just, I think that, that's just kind of what I mean by that.
Yeah. So 17 through 25.
Those are college years. Absolutely college years. I had an awesome college experience, by the way.
How was different? I miss that. See, when I see the college life in the media, in the movies, I was like, oh my God, I did not see that kind of college life. Because first, I was not in Miami.
I wasn't here either.
So how was it? Great or fun?
Okay.
And the other thing is, I was more interested in getting grades. And at some point in my life, in my grad school, I learned I can never ever have straight A's. So I should start.
Realistic.
And I was not happy with 3.65 GPA. I wanted to have 4.0. That I later on thought, who cares anymore?
Yeah. Well, when does that fade for us? Like, I feel like there's such a threshold there of like when you care so hard and you care so much and then it just dissipates. So, like, that's so freedom. Like, yeah. And also, I mean, I graduated from high school at 17. So I was the youngest one in my class, like pretty much like on the spectrum of ages. I was pretty young. So that's an interesting thing too to analyze how old you are actually amongst your class that you're always with. I was the youngest one. Literally, I was born.
Yeah, I was 17 and I graduated.
From high school?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that was just crazy.
That's incredible.
Oh, thank you. It didn't benefit me in any...
Where were you? Where'd you study? In Pakistan or in America?
Studying in Pakistan.
That's amazing, though. See, that's what I'm saying. I feel like education is so much valued in other countries than it is in America. More value. Like, the student values it.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
That's what I'm saying.
I have to think about that. Reflect on that.
I'm just trying to...
You mean it wasn't a ritual? You mean it's not a ritual? You just go to a high school because you gotta go there?
Yes, I feel like the students in America don't value the education that they're getting as much as other countries value the education that they may be getting. And maybe that's just a bias.
You know, if you have worked at schools, you would know.
I have. And I have to say that, like, I worked at a middle school and...
I wasn't in love with my... I did not want to do like, oh my God, I'm in high school now. Because I hated biology. I remember. I think I was okay at maths.
Well, when you graduate, okay, so like now I'm thrown out into the wolves, right? I don't know what I'm going to do. I like just go to community college up the street from my house.
You wanted to study or no?
It wasn't a choice. That was another one of those things. It was like, if you're not going to college, you're a freaking loser. You're not going to college, you're a deadbeat. You're not going to college, who are you? Like, you're not going to college? Like, gross. Meanwhile, I really wish I should have just said, Emily, do all of this stuff instead, But I had to go through that experience. It was just my generation where they pushed me. And I'm a program of what they made. So, I'm a product of what they made. Anyway, so yeah, 17, figure out what you got to do, right? Oh my God, don't know anything. What did they do to me for all those years? They didn't teach me anything about life. So I studied photography. I have a degree in photography. I have like an associate's degree. I loved photography. Cool. And I really wish that I stuck with it because I didn't know that photography was going to be such a thing as it is today. In the early 2008, that's when I went to college. So it was great. I loved it. I worked in the studio, got some, creative juices out, which was really nice. And then a conversation with one of my brothers, who's an engineer, by the way, was like, what are you going to do with photography? Like, you're not going to do anything with that. He got me thinking. I was like, yeah, I'm probably going to do something that like means something. I'm going to go study science. Whatever. I never studied science a day in my life. I didn't even study it in high school. They didn't mandate chemistry or physics for me in high school because I had taken an extracurricular class. I actually wanted to become a special effects makeup artist, so I should have done that because freaking that zombie thing came out 2 years later. Like, whatever. I should have just followed this is my moral to all the people that are listening that are young. Just follow your first initial dream and just go for it. Like,
literally.
That is like my thing. Anyway, so whatever.
Let me add to that. So I believe, even I was having this conversation a couple of days ago with my financial advisor. That's what he calls him. And I believe if your intentions are true, if you feel led to, because see, that's where it becomes very important, the Holy Spirit and the call. If you have a call and if you feel led to, And if you have discerned, which means in whatever way you pray or meditate or read scripture, connect to God and seek God's will, then you should go for whatever you feel led to. And it doesn't make a difference whether you make more money or less money, you'll have internal peace. Now, you can't be in the material competition with the world, for example. If you're doing some work, you might have to go with a cheaper car than a larger car, or bigger house or smaller. And that's why I value more this internal contentment and peace over the things you might do. And you might say, so when I was living in the Midwest, right? So I knew a lot of people, engineers, who were making so much money that they had their own planes. But do they have that peace? Do they have that contentment? Do they have just like that joy? Or it's just rush, run, and then you're on a bunch of tablets to just function? That's something I think I hope we all could think of early on. And people who are younger, really young, they could be somehow explained or introduced by the elders. Elders could be like parents or community members or guardians. And so, yeah.
Well, you have to understand that our society has designed it that way for us to be all kind of separated from each other. You can see that if you just look at our school system. I mean, they take our kids away from society for 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. And then where do the most of the elders go? The elders are, in homes usually. So I think that there's not a mix of ages going around enough, like the new isn't learning from the past. The past isn't able to teach those lessons to the new because they are separated so much. I firmly believe that we should incorporate those two.
So it's biblical, right? It's not something that's out of the ordinary. People who follow the Bible or they say we follow Jesus Christ, I think it's important for them to value the elderly and their knowledge. So here, when we go and read Titus chapter 2, verses 2 through 8, it says, old men to teach younger, means that older men should share their knowledge, experience, and wisdom with younger men, acting as mentors or guides to help them navigate life and develop their skills. Often referencing the biblical concept found in Titus 2:2, where older men are instructed to be role models and teach sound doctrine to younger generations. And similarly, it says older women. Because a woman who has been through some, even like dating and marriage and childbearing and child raising, there's some experience. I value some. So why do we go, like I would go even about filmmaking and all that, I would go to somebody who has done, say, big budget or been through some deep. Why? Because what they have been through, I can learn from their experience instead of trying and then wasting a bunch of money or time, right? So there's a wisdom. It can't be exact, but I still think it helps. So it's a biblical principle that younger people can learn from older people, and older people comes with a wealth of knowledge. It doesn't, their experience might not be an iPhone or an Android, but they will still be some principles, right?
That's the point, right?
That don't play with your phone?
No, that's the point. Is to just show you that like life has existed transcending what you know.
Sure, yeah.
And that is just amazing. I didn't realize, I don't think that it's only biblical. I think that it's purposeful. I think that it's meaningful. I think that it has to happen more. And I don't know why our elders are put away into homes. I don't think that that's the way that family unit should be. But we can deconstruct that totally. But that's another conversation that's just...
I always say biblical because there is a group of people, in the United States, who claim to be Christians and who don't say, but they kind of like make a statement that we got it right. We are very Christians. But then I see a contradiction between their understanding or the way they live out
Oh, well,
versus what they claim to believe in or follow.
exactly. That's like a virtue keeper, right? Somebody that just like keeps all these virtues but doesn't actually internalize them.
So that's why I always bring up some biblical texts to just remind. It's not like I'm not judging anyone or I'm not trying to attack. It's just like if we follow Jesus Christ, if we say we belong to God, if we say we are chosen by God, saved by God, then we gotta live up to God's expectations, which are clearly given in the scripture, right? And then we will be just not only admire, what's the word? Praising or worshiping God. It's that our relationship with Him will be more strengthened, and it will be the right relationship. It will be the wholesome approach.
Right.
So that's why I try to quote some of the biblical references.
No, I think that it's a great reminder. I mean, that's one of the oldest stories of our time, right? And there's a lot of lessons to be learned in that. And I mean, talking about how to merge old thoughts with new minds, what's better than reading the Bible?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
It's convenient. It's available.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that it's perfect.
Yeah.
And I feel uneducated that I haven't read it, you know? And I know that there was this list I had seen probably in college of like the top 10 books that you have to read in life. And number 1 was the Bible. And then there was a couple of other ones, and it wasn't a religious source that I was looking at. It was just become educated, you know? And that's pretty cool. And I do think that older generations hold more respect towards religion than the younger ones, obviously. And I think that merge could help too. I mean, I learned all that I could from my Nana. She was so cool. So like I said before, I had like a little bit of everything, right? Like I had like the very strict, but then I had, you know, my Nana who was just like, where is Jesus on her t-shirt? And like had I love Jesus beaded necklaces and beaded bracelets up her arm and was just like happy about it. And just like, she was such a breath of fresh air with Jesus, you know?